What's going on, guys? It's Uche Njoku, and today we are celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Day. Let's talk about it.
When they see me, they know that every day when I'm breathing, it's for us to go farther. You know, every time I speak, I want the truth to come out. You know what I'm saying? Every time I speak, I want to shiver. You know, I don't want them to be like, they know what I'm going to say because it's polite. They know what I'm going to say. And even if I get in trouble, you know what I'm saying? Ain't that what we're supposed to do? I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job, is to spark somebody else watching us. We might not be the ones, but let's not be selfish, and because we're not going to change the world, let's not talk about how we should change it. I don't know how to change it, but I know if I keep talking about how dirty it is out here, somebody's going to clean it up.
And now he's been promoted. His job, principal.
What's going on, guys? This is Uche Njoku again. Welcome to the Sneaker Principal Podcast. And this morning, I'm going to talk to you for a very, very, very brief moment as I prepare to head out shortly. I am going to be giving the keynote address at the Morris Heights Health Center, their community service program they're having today. And I am the keynote speaker. And this is interesting. This is my official first keynote speech that I'm doing. I've done a lot of talks and speeches to my students, to my families, different academic space situations and spaces where I had to present. But this is my first actual keynote speech. So I won't lie, a little kind of like, okay, this is different. You know, it shouldn't be different. I've done this many times before as far as just speaking to people. So the whole notion of being in a space where I have to speak to a much larger, to an audience as the main speaker amongst other speakers, I think that's what's kind of like, you know, mess with my head this a little bit. You know, there's some other very distinguished people, political types and community service folks who are in that space. I've never really seen myself as a community service. A community focused person. I'm saying this wrong, not focused person, because I am focused on community because I am a public school educator. I'm a public school principal, so it is about the community. But I guess the word I'm trying to say is like a community activist, or someone that could be seen in that realm. So to be in a space where I'll be speaking to folks in that capacity is different for me, and I just want to also make sure I'm not calling this event the wrong thing. So this is the Morris Heights Health Center's MLK Junior Community Unity Walk and Clean. So they'll be doing some service in the community, cleaning and beautification. Then afterwards there'll be a gathering at a local charter school where, you know, I'm first to speak ahead of several other very, very distinguished people. It is what it is. You know, listen, I want to tell you this one thing about me and a lot of school leaders and aspiring leaders. Understand this. I hate speaking. It's not that I hate speaking. It is a source of great anxiety for me because I think back to my childhood where I would always freeze. You know, I was like, please don't call me. Don't look at my direction. In class, I would have the highest level of anxiety, hands sweating, armpits dripping, forehead, just to be called to answer a question or to read aloud. And then being West African and growing up in a household with a mother who was Pentecostal and having to go to church several times a week. And then my mother was a very, very popular person within the church. So she was kind of like that person who everybody looked at their children, but they were like, hey, your child is going to be X, Y, Z, because you're such a faithful woman in the Lord. So everybody looked at me and was like, you're going to be a pastor. And I was like, you're all bugging. First of all, I stutter. Number two, I'm dyslexic. Number three, a little bit of ADHD and attention deficit disorder, all these things all in this little boy. And people were like, no, he's going to be a great man of God. And I'd be pushed to the pulpit to pray in front of the whole church or once in a, not even once in a while, like sometimes just come up here, say something for the Lord. What does the Lord move you to say? And I'll be standing there looking like there are a couple of times where I think I peed on myself just a little bit. I was so scared. So to be where I'm at now, where my primary responsibility and job requires that I'm speaking to the public. I speak to parents when they're happy, when they're sad, when they're brand new to a school. I speak to students nonstop. I speak to teachers in front of professional development and our team meetings. I speak in front of the district office. I've spoken in front of the New York City Department of Education chancellors, several chancellors. Then during the pandemic, I caught myself trying to start a podcast. So now I speak to the dozens of people who catch my podcast whenever it's on, but still, it's still a source of anxiety for me. And I'll tell you this, many school leaders wouldn't admit it, but it's hard. It's hard speaking because you always expected to have the right words to say or to present a certain way. And I think that's what I struggled with and as a speaker. Because when we talk about speakers, it's funny because we're celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who's arguably one of the greatest orators of all time. Think about that. There is not a single speech that you hear from him that you're just not mesmerized by. His cadence, the way he spoke intentionally and slowly, and those pauses, and then he would find the right word to pull you in, and you would hear the audience say, amen, or go, right on, brother. He just had a way of galvanizing his audience. But even greater than that, galvanizing a nation. You have people like him, people like Malcolm X, people like Frederick Douglass, one of the greatest speeches ever spoken about 4th of July, Independence Day. You have all these people, Barack Obama, these are my role models, as men who I looked up to and say, wow, I can't do that. So today, to be in a space where even if it's just a really short address, probably no more than 4 or 5 minutes, but to think that here I am, 47 years old, being asked to speak, even though it's local event, it's not this is not being broadcast around the world, but still, it's such an honor to be asked to speak at a celebration celebrating one of the greatest orators of all time. So yeah. Let me get back to what I was saying previously. So a lot of school leaders, we struggle with that. Some of us are really great at talking and doing what we do. Some of us struggle. But it's one of those things that I've learned a long time ago. And I'm very grateful for the opportunities I had as a child to be pushed in front of audiences, even though I sucked at it tremendously. But those moments, I think, compounded to where I'm at right now, that even when I'm not making much sense, I'm okay with stumbling and stuttering my way through presentations and conversations and talks, because one of the marks of leadership is being able to communicate, and it's something that we have to build upon and keep practicing. Many school leaders avoid it, and I say, embrace it. For me, speaking, I have probably 3 phobias. Yeah, 3 phobias. One of it is water, drowning. Number 2, falling from heights. And number 3, speaking in public. And I think speaking in public is probably worse than the other 2. But one of the things that I've always done is those things that most scare me, or those things that most intimidate me, I embrace. I find ways to really engage in those things. It's been a while since I engaged in water, but I'm planning this summer to get back into the pool and work on my ability, improve my ability to swim, because I'm a father of 2, Lord, 2. And I want to make sure that, I'm modeling for them, a skill that could save their lives. Number 2 is heights. I've always been definitely afraid of heights, but as a result, I always put myself in positions where I've gone rock climbing, and I've rappelled off towers, and I've actually went skydiving. All these things terrified me, but I felt that if I allowed them to continue to scare me and don't do anything to confront these fears, then there'll always be something that will cripple me. And the time that I need to be brave in this instance, they involve that thing, like heights, I would freeze. So jumping out of a plane, I think 1,600 feet, I'm out of a plane. terrifying. But however, it was an experience that gave me a space in my brain to understand that it was worse in my head than it was in reality. And public speaking, same thing. There are days that I don't have the words, but I'll still go up there and say what I got to say. And people will say, "Oh my God, that was so amazing." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" But again, to allow myself to be in those spaces has been very important to me to really improve, if anything else, my confidence in those spaces. So I always push school leaders, get in front and get in front. I always push my staff, those who are talking about their aspiring school leaders, to get in front, to speak in front of, dignitaries, important folks that intimidate you, but also speak in front of the staff, speak in front of the school. There's nothing crazier than especially with middle schoolers, being in a room of 200-300 middle schoolers and you're talking to all of them at once, and capturing their attention. If you're able to do that, trust me, sitting in front of, 200-300 adults, it's not a problem. But trust me, if you can get the attention of middle schoolers, yeah, you're doing pretty well. But yeah. So it's a little thing. As I was preparing for the speech for today, something I wanted to share with you that I thought was very insightful. I decided to just kind of like revisit Dr. King's speeches over the past couple of days. It's been a while since I actually sat down and listened to his speeches. When I was in college, I was obsessed with Dr. King and Martin Luther King. Dr. King and Malcolm X. Their speeches, the fact that they were contemporaries, and how they said the same things but in different ways. How they exuded two different philosophies that were really the same philosophy, just from, I guess, like a double-edged sword. They were speaking to the same audience, wanting the same things, but from different sides of the sword. So I was going through King's speeches, and those of you who are aware, his speeches became, I don't want to say more radical, but more exacting, as his time went on. Unfortunately, until he passed away, or better yet, was assassinated. But it's a particular speech that I came across that I think every school leader should find and listen to. It's a speech that he did I think October 26, 1967. I think I might have the wrong day, but I know it's October 1967. He did a speech in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and it was at Barrett Junior High School. And the speech was titled, "What is your life's blueprint?" What is your life's blueprint? And this speech was to a bunch of middle schoolers, to a middle school. And I thought it was amazing because I've only come across his speeches that were done to audiences of adults primarily, dignitaries primarily. You see things like the speech in Washington, the I Have a Dream speech, the mountaintop speech. You see all those speeches and things of that nature, and you're like wowed. But this particular speech for me was very powerful because of the fact of his audience were children. He spoke to children in this one, and the things he talked about were very powerful. I just want to kind of like see if I can find some of my notes here and share with you the things that stood out to me, if I can find it. Because again, you don't really hear as much about you don't come across him speaking to our youth. Let me see here, I can find it. Please forgive me. I'm here trying to find. Okay, so some of the things he talks about in the speech, and please find it. If you just type in "What is your life's blueprint," Dr. King, you'll come across it. And these are the things he highlights in his speech to children. And the first one was the belief in personal dignity. He talked about somebodyness, recognizing your somebodyness. That you are a person, you're important, you are someone of value, and what you bring to the world, and not allow yourself to be seen as not being worthy, and and talking about the stigmas of prejudice and things concerning race. And it's funny because we're talking about 1967, and now we're in 2024. This is still happening. The number of times I got to talk to my kids about them, who they are, believing in self. Like my school core values are belief, excel, strive, and trust. And these are things that speak to the individual, and I want my students to really hold on to, as they go through the challenges of life, as they move through, not just through the education, but into adulthood and through life. Number 2, he talks about the pursuit of excellence. It's funny because I really loved how he talked about being the best at what you do, regardless of what that thing is. If you are a sweeper, then sweep so well that the world comes to see you sweep. He says that you can create something that's so valuable that it doesn't matter where you live. People will come and hunt you down for that thing. You can live in the middle of the forest and you create that thing that changes, the world, or does something better than that thing has been done before. People will come knocking down your door for that thing. So to be excellent in who you are, the way you present yourself, and always recognize that somebodyness of excellence that is in you. Then he also talked about the commitment to principles, like having value in yourself. And he talked about around beauty, love, justice, and not succumbing to hatred or losing self-respect in the face of injustice. Again, mind you, he's talking to middle schoolers. This is not a speech to adults. And it's funny because I don't feel I've come across a speech where he talks specifically to adults in this manner and talks about the self. Most of the speeches, and again, there's a lot of speeches, so my brain might not be, connecting to a speech that way he does that. But most of his speeches were like about the struggle, what we need to do to mobilize, to stand our ground. But here he's giving children, again, the blueprint of personal excellence. We're talking about adhering to eternal principles such as beauty, love, and justice, and not succumbing to hatred or losing self-respect in the face of injustice. These are things that we need, that children, especially during that time, even today, would need to really solidify upon to be able to go into the world and face the injustices that are going to happen, to ensure that they don't lose faith or lose an understanding of who they are. Then he talks about the nonviolent approach. He reaffirms his belief that nonviolence, the nonviolent approach, is necessary to achieve social change and justice. Stand our ground. Don't fight fire with fire, because when you fight fire with fire, you burn everything down. Versus maybe fighting fire with water. When they're pushing, you're pulling. When you're pulling, they're pushing. Like create that space where you are finding balance rather than destruction. Finding balance in a space where you can actually communicate with each other and come to a resolution. It's harder. It's easier to try to slap somebody or punch somebody in your face than sit there and trying to negotiate. But again, he emphasizes this. And it's funny because as a school leader, as an educator for almost 20, I keep saying almost 20 years in New York City, if you include all the other places, definitely over 20 years, violence seems to be the only way that in society we're moving. Our kids are more violent because society says that, we don't turn the other cheek. So this is something, again, he's pointing to children back then that we need to do the same thing now. And then the most important thing, which I think is so powerful as we move into the month of February, which is recognized as Black History Month, but also should be happening all the time across cultures, across, nationalities, is the inspiration from historical figures. He goes through a list of amazing people who did amazing things with very, very little, and he talks about, that no matter where you are, what you're going through, there's somebody who has gone through it as well. Look to them as a blueprint. See what their blueprint was, and let their blueprint inspire your blueprint. And this was so powerful. It's funny because as I'm reading, I'm going through this, I'm thinking about my speech, and I'm thinking, wow. And I have a written speech, but I'm not sure if I'm going to if I might end up free flowing it, or if I'm going to actually read my speech as it is, or do a remix and mix both of them in together. I don't know. I'll find out in about 2 hours. I speak at 12:11 this afternoon. So I got to head out really soon to the Bronx and make sure I get parking and make sure I'm there on time. But again, this is I just wanted to share with you my thinking and my process as I reflect on Dr. Martin Luther King and the amazing man he was, and then also the task that I have today in speaking as keynote speaker for Morris Heights Health Center. All right, y'all. Let me get out of here, and get myself there and on time. Actually, not on time, before time, so I can, get my final thoughts together before I speak. But again, happy MLK Junior Day, and let's reflect on his messages. If you can find some of his speeches, please do so and listen to them. They're so powerful. And specifically, what is your life's blueprint? This one that you should listen to and even share with your children. I think I'm going to honor him this Friday when I do my principal's town hall and actually show that video and have a conversation with my middle schoolers at MS224, Exploration and Discovery. With that being said, have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you all soon. All right, peace.